Under the setup screen, there is also the option to configure your barrel heaters and mold heaters. Obviously, if mold heaters are not installed on the machine, this setup parameters has no function or purpose on the machine. If we go under barrel heaters, there are 4 screens under that category. The first is general parameters. General parameters only has 2 settings. What's the maximum set point an operator can enter, and what's the shutdown temperature? So the maximum set point is an operator can no longer or cannot type anything higher than 680 degrees, but the shutdown temperature is if for any reason any zone hits 700 degrees, all zone heaters are shut off by the PLC through a contactor, thus power is prevented from reaching the solid state relays and the barrel heaters themselves. Another option is all the different parameters for each zone. So these last 3 screens are pretty much identical. So for example, if I go under the rear heater, I have the option to turn on all the heaters at once, but I also have the option to pre-tune each individual section or fine-tune each section. So a tune itself is these heaters run off of a PID loop. The Siemens PLC has the option to auto-calculate the PI and D variables off the PID loop. Just the difference between a pre-tune and a fine-tune is a pre-tune is ideally more from a cold start, so ambient temperature up to your target temperature, or a fine-tune is more ideal where you're near your target temperature, you just want to refine the parameters that you have. This screen also shows you the current temperature of the zone, the target temperature or set point for the zone, temperature window, so how much fluctuation are you allowing at that set point. So in this case it's set to 10 degrees, so the machine considers that zone at temperature from 440 to 460 in our example here. Cycle time is how often the solid state relays or even the PID loop cycles through its logic. So every 10 seconds it evaluates how long to keep those heaters on. And then there's a max on, max off time. So our maximum on by default is 80%. We don't like to set this any higher. Ideally, so what that means is when we're doing a warm startup in the beginning, so we're going from ambient to target temperature, instead of those heaters being on consistently for the next few minutes, there's a break in that time period. So we usually might see 8 seconds on and 2 seconds off. This will lengthen the lifetime of your heater bands versus if you just left them on continuously during these warm-up cycles. There's also displays the PID parameters, so they are not adjustable normally. These are calculated by the Siemens PLC, but if you choose to manually modify them, you can press this button here, which will enable you the ability to modify them. And then once you're if you want to change it back to the PID settings that are calculated, just click this button again and it'll just use what's calculated by the Siemens PLC. The PID output is showing what percentage is actually being calculated out of the PID loop. So when we're warming up, you might see it up to 80%, but when we're more at temperature, you might see something lower like 5 to 10% on. There's also an indicator light right next to the percentage letting you know when exactly the solid state relay should be on and when it should be off. The last is the state of that zone, whether it's on or off, whether it's actually running through a pre-tune or fine-tune, or if there's a fault present.